We've been waiting for the Columbus Blue Jackets to take a step. Do they do that this season with their top 5 fantasy targets? We'll break it all down on today's show.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The NHL campaign is rapidly approaching, my fantasy fanatics, and you're tapped right back into the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Here with Steele and Flip, and on today's show, we hit the Columbus Blue Jackets on our league-wide breakdown of every single club's top 5 targets, but I'm turning it over to my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Rodin, for a little bit of a tease and some info into our upcoming listener leagues before we get to these Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, this is a special time right now. We're almost a month away from NHL back in action, fantasy hockey right around the corner. However, this is a very special episode for Flip and I as well. Flip, we have been doing this show for a very long time now. We're 5.5 years into our Locked On Podcast Network tenure, and this is our 1,000th episode doing this show together on Locked On Fantasy Hockey. So I wanted to give a shout out to you and to myself, honestly, because it's been an absolute blast over the last 5 years, just being able to talk hockey and create this community that we've built over the last 5 years has been really cool to see. So I mean, it's been a great, I really appreciate you, Flip. I love doing the show with you, but
appreciate
1,000 shows, man. Well, how are you feeling about that?
Honestly, I say this to my wife a lot. I could not do this show without you. You keep me honest. You keep me on point. You know, sometimes big man just wants to bail out and hit the snooze button early. So I appreciate you holding me down. And also, fantasy-wise, you're the only one keeping this show relevant by still holding it down in the top end of our leagues. So I got to show you some love, but I also got to show some love to our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook that I forgot about, Steele, because today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Check out Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer this season. However, before we get to the Blue Jackets, I appreciate you most and foremost, but I really do love all the feedback we get from our listeners. I know you and we do a lot of work for this show. It becomes worth it for me, aside from I really do like talking shop with you. When we hear people succeeding in the fantasy game, or we get a lot of awesome feedback. So shout out to you guys for continuing to hold us down. 1,000 episodes is something I'm super proud of. However, Steele, this is our crunch time, baby. We got no time to take the foot off the gas. If anything, it's pedal to the metal, and it's almost draft season, baby.
Nose to the grind, and we are getting after it here. And again, we couldn't be doing it with all of you listeners out there who tune in every single day, and we couldn't be doing it without you and our listener leagues as well. We are so excited to get year 5 up and running for our casual and competitive listener leagues. So wanted to throw out some details and share some information with everyone out there. We have set the dates. They are official. They're not moving. September 27th and September 28th will be the official dates for both our casual and competitive league drafts. Those won't change at all. Obviously, if you participated with us last year and you finished in the top 3, we just renewed the leagues. You've got the invites. You're already back in the league. If you want to participate this season, we are open for business. We've already got so many DMs and messages across all social media platforms out there as well. We're going to be going and covering all of them to make sure we get every one of you into the draw, which the draw will be happening the week of September 21st. So the draw will happen a week before the drafts. We'll make sure all 2 leagues are completely filled with 16-team leagues, and then we're going to get after it on the 27th and the 28th. So leagues renewed. Participants who won or came in top 3, they're in the leagues, and we're ready and open for business here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast.
And don't forget, make sure you follow us on Instagram, drop us that 5-star review, and check us out on YouTube and subscribe. Those 3 things make you into the draw. Make sure you're doing that for us. Helps the pod out a lot. And Steele, straight up and down, yeah, we benefit from doing this show. Top 5 targets of every team, Columbus Blue Jackets time. We do it for the fans. It helps us, but we just love hockey and fantasy hockey. And we're in the middle of summer here talking about the Seattle Kraken, the Columbus Blue Jackets. This isn't pretty. And I have some concerns about this Blue Jackets team. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Top 5 targets. We've been waiting for this team to pop, take a step. Lots of good young players. I'm looking at this lineup this year, Steele. I like the goaltender. I like their number 1 blue liner. After that, there's not many players here that really get me overly excited on the fantasy side of things.
Well, this conversation starts off very difficult for me, and I was stuck in the crossroads or in the crosshairs here. I was at the crossroads and really trying to decide who I wanted to pick at the number 5 spot. Do I want to go with the guy who's got all the opportunity in the top 6 group on that top line, or do I go with a guy in Charlie Coyle who has been very consistent and honestly was one of the best streaming options last year? And
Absolutely.
he was on my roster for the second half of the season all the way into the end. So Charlie Coyle, a guy who's been very consistent, durable over the last couple of seasons, had, I believe, 59 points last year. Just because of the consistency, I wanted to go with Charlie Coyle. But by default, I had to go with Valeri Nichushkin. And this is why it pains me so much, because there's just so much risk with this player on and off the ice. He hasn't been very durable throughout his career. Has never played a full 82-game regular season. He's been somewhere perennially around, or at least over the last 5 years, somewhere between 40 to 55 points on the high side. So he's consistent in that case, but not consistent in games played. The shot total has been inconsistent as well. His games played, his time on ice has been maneuvered. However, the only reason he cracks the top 5 for me is the opportunity and deployment on that first line with Adam Fantilli and Kirill Marchenko, and maybe even perhaps getting first power play time if things don't really work out with Ken Johnson, who's been very inconsistent himself.
Absolutely. And look, at the end of the day, I don't want to I'm going to say this a whole bunch. I can't get overly excited about anyone on this list except for, and I don't want to tease to it, Jet Greaves is a really intriguing goalie. And I'm going to talk about him in a second. And obviously you got Zach Werenski anchoring your blue line. You're in great shape, but a player I see a lot of risk with this team, Steele. And when I talk about, look, I like Denton Mateychuk. I think that's an intriguing young player. They brought their moves in the offseason also don't move the needle for me. Ryan Lomberg, Nichushkin, I think they got Phoenix Copley in the cage to maybe add some security blanket here because Merzlikins is out. So there's also that angle for Jet Greaves. I'll just leave it at this. Valeri Nichushkin has proved in his NHL career that he can score big goals. He's done it in the postseason. He did it for Colorado. However, you know what it is with this player. And we don't come on here many times and put a player in the top 5. I know I don't, and say, I wouldn't draft this player. Do I think he's the 5th off the board? Yes. I don't want Valeri Nichushkin on my team. I don't say that very often about our top 5
I don't think anybody does.
And when you're looking at his peripherals, 55 hits, 27 blocks, 26 penalty minutes, even if this guy has a bounce back season, Steele, and you get 55 points out of him, and that's a good year, I just don't see it. It's the 4, 3, 2, and 1 players on this team that I would actually be okay with owning.
Absolutely. It gets more exciting, and we'll talk a little bit more in depth on Jet Greaves, who comes in at the number 4 spot for me when we come back after the break. But I think this has been a guy, at least over the last year, who was viewed as a sleeper and then quickly transitioned into a legitimate number 1 fantasy hockey goaltender. And I think where at least Yahoo has him ranked, or at least fantasy hockey platforms have Jet Greaves ranked right now, is a little bit disrespectful. It's too low in my opinion. And we'll get to that when we come back after the break. And of course, the rest of the top 5 Columbus Blue Jackets here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod.
And make sure you stay tapped in. We are continuing our league-wide breakdown, top 5 targets. We're into the upper echelon of clubs. We got mock draft Mondays kicking off tomorrow, Mr. Rodin. We will be here all the way up to your draft so you can dominate it. Today's show is brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Baseball fans, if you know who's hitting a home run today, FanDuel will give you your free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. Easy to play. Make your free pick for who you think hits a home run in their game game. If you're right, you receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a bigger chance at a better payout. Best of all, you can get your free pick in every single day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged on every day's games. Whether you're following your favorite club or just checking in on every day's action, every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. I talked about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. the other day, Steele. I'm looking at Kaz Okamoto instead on that Blue Jays team to go for my next Daily Dinger pick. Who are you ready to play? Play your game today at FanDuel. Join at FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com. Play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball, swing for the fences on FanDuel, official partner of MLB.
And once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, share with your friends and family. And like Flip said, make sure you hit us up in the DMs on Instagram, X, or TikTok. We'll get you in on the draw for both our casual and competitive leagues. Just let us know which one you want to participate in. We'll get you on the list, and hopefully you have a chance to play with us this year on the Fantasy Hockey Listener League. Flip, number 4, Jet Greaves comes at the number 4 spot for me. And like I said, he went from a sleeper to a legitimate fantasy starter in a very quick and short period of time. You go back to 2 seasons ago in that small sample size, 11 games he played, a .938 save percentage, a below 2.0 goals against average. He gets the starts. He gets that number 1 role in Columbus over Elvis Merzlikins. He plays 50-plus games. He was 26-19-9. He had 2 shutouts, a .908 save percentage. And that's all with the banged-up Columbus Blue Jackets, what they went through last year with some pretty bad injuries throughout the lineup, poor defensive plays as well in front of him. So I think Jet Greaves was getting ranked a little bit lower than where I would have him placed. And I believe Yahoo had him somewhere around 170, 175 is what I recollect. I think he deserves a little bit more respect on his name. And I think this is a goaltender that you should be looking towards targeting this upcoming season. And while Columbus has struggled over the past couple of seasons to really can make themselves Stanley Cup contenders or playoff contenders, there's really good things about this team. And like you said, they didn't move the needle necessarily in the offseason with some of those additions. But I think when you look at some of the top tier guys, and again, we're going to talk about them in Marchenko and Adam Fantilli, maybe Ken Johnson can get something going in his game. But Zach Werenski has had back-to-back seasons now where he is putting himself up in contention of the best defenseman in the game here. And again, we'll talk more in depth about him. But Jet Greaves, I think, has a lot going for him, especially with his skill level and just where he can take his game and develop it to be maybe a top 10 goaltender in the league. I'm not going to say top 10 right now. I think that's really bold. I wouldn't say that. But Jet Greaves is really close to putting himself in that conversation.
I would say you're very spot on with this breakdown here. Once again, Mr. Rodin, shout out to you on the 1000th episode. We're killing it still. Jet Greaves is a very talented goaltender. And yeah, he might not be in the top 10 on paper yet, but if I'm talking about the confidence that I have to make that prediction, if you have a .908 save percentage, a 2.60 goals against, and a positive win-loss record on a team in the Columbus Blue Jackets that last year had the 4th worst penalty kill in the NHL. So that is very impressive right there. And then you're also talking about how many shots against that this team actually allows. They allowed the 10th most shots against. It's really impressive here what this goaltender was able to do last season. Is it still the Columbus Blue Jackets? And does that make me a little bit concerned about placing too much draft capital into this goaltender? Because I don't know how many wins this team is going to get this year, straight up and down. I'm not trying to be negative, but that Eastern Conference is stacked. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. So that's where Jet Greaves, if he's on a better team, Steele, he is a top 10 goaltender. This guy's got a lot of talent. So I like this player. Like I said, he excites me because I think you're going to get a lot of value out of him. And intriguingly enough, before I turn it back over to you, you were talking about rankings. That ranking that I keep bringing up, Matt Larkin's on Daily Faceoff and NHL.com's. Look at the discrepancy here. NHL.com has Jet Greaves at 187, along with Jacob Fowler at 188 and UC Saros at 189. And then you look at Matt Larkin. Jet Greaves is 102. So I would say he needs a lot more respect on his name. And I think Matt Larkin at Daily Faceoff is a lot closer to the number of where I think this goaltender is going to go in drafts, right? Maybe it's the 8th round. Maybe it's the 9th round. It's not going to be the 14th, 15th round.
You never know, Flip. I mean, a lot of people are buying into that 0G strategy, and they're waiting on goaltenders to find that value later in the draft. I could see Jack Greaves falling all the way to the 14th potentially. And that would be a great value pick. That would be an absolute steal out there because of what he brings to the table here. Flip, I don't know about you, but I had to go with Kirill Marchenko at number 3, and I think him and Adam Fantilli are a lot closer than people think. When you look at the overall stats of these players, and honestly, stats from last year, projections for this upcoming season as well, they're very close in where they should be drafted and where their average draft position is. You know, only 8 more points for Marchenko over Fantilli, 3 more goals, 5 more assists. Fantilli had a few more penalty minutes than Marchenko. Their shots on goal was only 4 apart in favor of Marchenko as well. So very similar shots on goal volume from those two. Blocks very similar too. The only big difference is the physicality that Adam Fantilli brings to the game. Almost more than doubled the amount of hits that Kirill Marchenko had last season. Adam Fantilli had 139. Marchenko had 61. Kirill Marchenko comes in at number 3 for me, and I understand that he is the more developed Columbus Blue Jacket player and the more dependable offensive player over Adam Fantilli. He's already established himself that he can be a 30-goal scorer on a consistent basis. 31 2 seasons ago, 27 the past year, missed 6 games though. He's proven that he can be that type of guy. I look at Adam Fantilli, and I'm going to kind of go as to why I have Adam Fantilli at 2 as well. I think there's just a lot potential there of what he can do. And we've seen him, yes, maybe slowly develop over his 3 years in the National Hockey League. For Adam Fantilli, that is 59 points this past season. He had 54 the season prior to that, 27 in his rookie year. He hasn't missed a game in 2 years as well, and he's still only 21, soon to be 22 years old. And I know that, Marchenko's 25, 26. He's not even in his prime yet. There's a lot more for both of these players to develop. I like the physicality that Adam Fantilli brings over Kirill Marchenko, and that's why I'm okay with the slight little difference in overall offensive production and goals and overall points, because Adam Fantilli matches it up very nicely with what he does with his physicality. And especially in our banger leagues, that really matters. Again, I value those peripherals because those points, they really do add up throughout the season, and they bring it a lot closer than you think it might be. So I'm totally fine with Kirill Marchenko at the number 2 spot. I think you go either or, but I like Adam Fantilli, especially for banger league categories.
I think you're very spot on once again. I think they're drafted very similarly in range of rounds, just kind of throwing out a number. Maybe it's the 5th, maybe it's the 6th round for these 2 players, maybe something like that, end of the 6th round. I don't know. What I do know is the one angle why I have Kirill Marchenko at 2, and this is why we like doing different lists, and I think that's a great comparison for our listeners out there. Kirill Marchenko had 24 points on the power play last year. Adam Fantilli only had 13. Kirill Marchenko had 7 game-winning goals last year. Adam Fantilli 3. That statistic is very hard to predict, and not a lot of leagues have game-winning goals. But I think it's just more to
ours does
that this is very close. Ours does, and I like it. That's why I'm just throwing it out there. Kirill Marchenko's fantasy ceiling also intrigues me a little bit more with his offensive flair. He has got hands that are made of satin, silk, or whatever soft material you got. This guy's hands are money, dude. I really like this player steal. And you've already broken it down so nicely, so I'll just leave it at this. This might be a bit more of a personal preference thing, and you alluded to it. You want a little bit more banger league peripheral coverage? You go Adam Fantilli. You want a little bit more offensive upside, and you're looking into a more simple league, or you need a little bit more of potential offensive production? You go Kirill Marchenko, but they're so close, as you just said. I think we're a little bit splitting hairs here at 3 and 2, because not on many teams as it as clear cut who the number 1 is. This is one of those that we know who is at number 1, and we'll talk about that after the break.
And honestly, at this point, he even might be a top 3 defenseman. That debate is still up for grabs. We're going to have to do a top 10 defenseman list going into the fantasy hockey draft as well. We'll talk about him as well as finish up on Adam Fantilli when we come back after the break. Once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, hit the follow button, leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Flip, Livingstone, and Steele Rodin. Flip, just to end up on the Adam Fantilli conversation before we get to Zach Werenski. For me,
Absolutely.
where I project him, and again, just like the durability that he brings, the physicality, his overall development increasing in almost every single category as well. Goals, assists, points, penalty minutes, hits, blocks, everything is just very consistent with this guy right now. I'm projecting Adam Fantilli for a really good season here, and I think he's going to take another step in having a career high season. So I'm going to project him for 30 goals, 40 assists on the high side. I'm going to say 70 points is where I'm aiming to see him be at. And Kirill Marchenko had 74 points a few seasons ago. He took a pretty big step in his career as well. So I think both of these guys are going to complement each other, and that hopefully plays into why we have Valeri Nichushkin at the number 5 spot as well. But at number 1, you know who it is. It's Zach Werenski, currently pre-ranked on Yahoo at 13. I think he could easily be a late first round selection, should be at least an early second round selection in those 16 team league formats, in those formats especially. But I look at Zach Werenski and I really like the consistency that I'm seeing from him now in his overall game. And we know what hindered this player at least, 3 through 6 years ago, and the injuries that were piling up on him, not able to, again, be very consistent in that department. Injuries just continuing to pile up. Was perennially around a 40 to 50 point player because of those injuries and that struggle throughout his part of the game. But the last 2 years, he's been healthy. He's only missed 7 games in the last 2 seasons. And he's gone now back-to-back 80-plus points, 2 consecutive years of 20-plus goals, 2 consecutive years of having 59 assists, 80-plus points. He has 260-plus shots over the last 2 seasons, 100 to 130 blocks, 30 to 35 hits on the high side. He gets some penalty minutes here and there, game-winning goals, power play points. Like, this is a defenseman that does it all. So when you look at Cale Makar, and I think he's the consensus number 1, and I know people like to have Quinn Hughes at the number 2 spot, depending on what your format is, but in Banger League categories, to me, it goes Cale Makar, you got Zach Werenski, you got Rasmus Dahlin, you got Evan Bouchard, and then, again, that's where you can start to get to Matthew Schaefer, Quinn Hughes.
Mo Sider
a little bit as well. I think he'd be a little bit farther down the draft board for me, just based on his points. Again, I love the peripherals that he brings, but Zach Werenski is arguably a late first-round pick, and he honestly should be at this point because over the last 2 seasons, he's shown us the consistency that he brings to the game here. So it's a very easy number 1 target.
Absolutely. Sorry to cut you off there. Right now, just again, food for thought comparison. NHL.com's top 15 defenseman list. Cale Makar, Zach Werenski, Quinn Hughes, Evan Bouchard, Lane Hudson, we forgot to throw into that mix. Most definitely 78 points for Lane Hudson last year in 82 games. A point per game defenseman steal. Not many of those around right now in today's NHL. However, I'm here for you. You're right with Mo Sider down the list. Maybe he's more in the realms of the Jacob Chikrin situation, 8, 9, 10 into the rankings. However, this is a conversation you and I are going to need to have. Goalies are spicy. We like forwards, but there's something about doing and ranking D-men's that I think really happens to anchor your team in a very big way. So if you're talking about getting a piece of Zach Werenski, you had him last year. You had some of this 81 point value, 94 block shots, 260 shots on net. I see him when you're talking about shot volume and getting that value as well. 202 shots a couple of years ago, followed up by 298, followed by 260. I think he falls right in the middle of all 3 of those numbers year in and year out. If you're talking about what I think happens, 240 to 250 shots, and that's ton of value. Cherry on top. This is the number 1 target on the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I'm with you. This is an end of the first round draft pick, and I am very pleased with the shaping up of my team if you have a Zach Werenski to start off your blue line draft.
Yeah, if I were going to project where these guys would go, and I mean, we're a fantasy hockey podcast, so we should be doing projections here. Number 1, Zach Werenski is probably going somewhere late first round, early second round. When I look at Adam Fantilli and Kirill Marchenko, I think you can easily draft them somewhere between the 4th to the early 6th round.
Yep, I like that.
Jet Greaves, I would personally have him somewhere around the 10th. I think you could easily wait for him somewhere closer to the 12th or 13th.
People will be waiting for him.
I think I think he'll slide. I think he will slide just based on the overall team. It's just not good enough. And then Valeri Nichushkin, even though he is the number 5 guy, I would wholeheartedly not draft this player just because of the risk factor that he brings. However, he might be a great streaming option, and who knows, maybe he becomes a roster spot throughout the season on your fantasy hockey team. So there's the Columbus Blue Jackets I don't think are going to be a playoff team by any means, but there's some value here, especially with the top 3 guys.
Just even look in their own division to wrap this episode up. Washington Capitals, Philadelphia Flyers, Carolina Hurricanes. I don't know what the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to do this year. The Islanders are a bit of an enigma. But if you're just talking about just the Metro Steel, you could easily power rank this team on paper as the 8th out of the 8 teams in this division. And then you're not even factoring in a revamped and dangerous-looking Florida Panthers team. Say what you will about Toronto, revamped as well. They got a number 1 goaltender for the first time in a while, a number 1 D-man for the first time in a while, and then we're not even talking about Tampa, Montreal, and Buffalo. They will be in tough to find themselves in a playoff spot come April.
Oh, absolutely. Eastern Conference is just so deadly right now, stacked to the max here, and so is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Just remember, we are open for business for both our casual and competitive league. Send us direct messages on Instagram, X, TikTok. Give us your, the information we'll need, just full name, email. You can leave that in our message box, and we'll get you into the draw. The draw will be happening the week of September 21st. The draft will be September 27th and September 28th. And don't forget, Flip and myself will be doing our first live mock draft later tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern time. If you want to join us, again, we're going live at 7 o'clock. We'll have all the information up there. You can hop on. The chat's going to be open as well. You can join our mock draft. We'd love to have our participants, not just those bots out there. We want to have some real people join us for the mock draft. We really do appreciate it. So stay tuned for that later tonight here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Making it your first listen every single day. For your second listen, make sure you go check out the Locked On NHL Podcast.